I still remember that night like a photograph burned into my mind. The room was bright with Christmas lights, laughter everywhere, but all I felt was his stare. "The maid doesn't need to stand here. Get back to the kitchen." His words froze the room. Every fork hung midair. People whispered. I stood there, plates in hand, feeling not shame, but fire, anger, determination, something that would change everything. That was the night I promised myself I wouldn't be small anymore. The girl he mocked would rise, and one day, he would see her in control of everything he thought he owned. If you've ever been pushed down by someone who thought they were untouchable, watch closely, because I made my stepfather bow to me. My name is Adriana, and I'm 30 years old. I've learned the hard way that family doesn't always mean love, especially not when your stepfather sees you as someone beneath him. I grew up in a small Tennessee town where life was simple but never easy. My mom, Susan, ran a tiny sewing shop from home, and I spent most afternoons threading needles, hemming dresses, and sweeping the floors beside her. When my dad left us at 7, she worked herself to the bone to keep us afloat. We weren't rich. Far from it. Most nights we ate dinner by candlelight, not because it was romantic, but because we couldn't always afford the electricity bill. Still, Mom used to say, "We have grit, Adriana. That's better than gold." At 15, I started working after school, folding clothes, cleaning up, saving every penny for the future I knew I'd have to build myself. Mom would smile at me through tired eyes and say, "You've got my fight, honey." And I did. When I was 16, everything changed. Mom met Richard Bennett, a polished man from Chicago with a tailored suit, a silver watch, and promises that sounded too smooth to be true. He said he wanted to take care of us, to give Mom the life she deserved. Within months, we were living in a bigger house and Mom was wearing jewelry instead of worry. But it came with a price. Richard wasn't kind. He was controlling. He barked orders, treated me like hired help, and his daughter Jennifer made sure I never forgot my place. She was 2 years younger, spoiled and cruel in that quiet, practiced way that cuts deeper than words. "You're good at this servant stuff," Richard would say as I cleared dishes, laughing like it was a joke. But it wasn't. Mom never defended me. Her silence said everything: fear, guilt, dependence. So I bit my tongue and focused on escaping. School became my refuge. I studied harder than anyone, landing straight A's while working nights at a diner to save for college. When I got accepted to the University of Tennessee for computer science, I cried, half joy, half exhaustion. It wasn't a full scholarship, but it was a start. To make ends meet, I worked 3 jobs: barista in the mornings, library clerk by day, waitress at night. I lived on caffeine, cold sandwiches, and 4 hours of sleep. My roommate, Lisa Morgan, was the only person who kept me sane. She'd look at me across the dorm room and say, "You're going to outshine them all, Adriana. Just wait." After graduation, I freelanced, coding websites, optimizing ads, designing digital campaigns, anything that paid. By 26, I'd saved enough to move to Chicago. I thought being closer to Mom might mean things were better now. I was wrong. Their new condo looked like a showroom. Marble floors, massive chandeliers, glass walls framing the skyline. But it felt cold, hollow. Every visit followed the same script: Richard's taunts, Jennifer's smirks, and Mom's silence. "City life too fancy for you?" he'd ask, watching me like a predator sizing up prey. "Still building those cute little websites?" Jennifer would laugh, pretending to cough to hide it. Mom would force a smile and whisper later, "Please don't make a scene, Adriana." So I'd smile, swallow my pride, and pretend it didn't hurt. But every visit chipped away at me a little more. Each insult, each time he made me feel small, built a quiet storm inside. I'd lie awake at night in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, hearing his voice over and over. "You'll never be on my level." One night, Lisa saw me spiraling. "You're letting him live rent-free in your head," she said, handing me a slice of pizza. "You built your career from nothing. He just inherited his." She was right, but I didn't know how to fight back. Not yet. Every time I visited Mom, Richard's comments got sharper, his cruelty more public. He'd interrupt me mid-sentence to hand me dishes or laugh when Jennifer called me Miss Tennessee. The worst was when he'd brag about his company, Bennett Media Solutions, a $60 million firm with offices across Chicago, and then look at me like I was an insect. "You wouldn't understand how the business world works," he'd say, smiling like it was a favor. Those dinners turned into performance art, him the star, me the servant. I'd come home shaking, furious with him, furious with myself for letting it happen again and again. Until that Christmas party, the one where he went too far. By then, I'd been sketching an idea in my notebook, a project I'd dreamed about for months. A smarter, more personal ad platform that could rival the giants. But I hadn't believed in it, not fully, until that night when he called me a maid. That humiliation didn't crush me. It lit the fuse. I left the party without saying goodbye, gripping my car wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. But I wasn't crying. I was planning. That night, I sat down at my laptop, opened a blank screen and began typing. Not just code, but a blueprint for my future. The future where I was in control. By sunrise, I knew exactly what I had to do. I called Lisa, my voice steady for the first time in months. "I'm done playing small," I told her. "I'm starting a company, and I'm taking him down." From then on, every visit to Mom's condo was a test of patience. Richard's insults came smoother, deadlier, like he was sharpening his favorite knife. He'd hand me dirty dishes mid-conversation. "You're good at this, Adriana. Handle it." Jennifer would smirk, dropping her napkin on the floor. "Still got that small-town hustle?" She'd sneer, and I'd smile, collecting the dishes, pretending I didn't care because deep down I was counting down the days until they'd both have to answer to me. It started small. The digs, the interruptions, the sneers. Until one night during dinner, I tried to tell a story about a tech project that earned me $5,000. He cut me off halfway. "Why don't you help your mother clear the table? We're done eating." Mom looked down. Jennifer giggled. My face burned, but I didn't argue. Not that time, because now I was playing a longer game. Each insult only pushed me harder. Richard loved attention, but he had no idea the quiet girl he loved to mock was building something that would soon overshadow his empire. And whenever it got too heavy, when his voice echoed too loud in my mind, I had Lisa sitting across from me at my tiny kitchen table, reminding me who I really was. Over coffee at my apartment, I'd vent about Richard's latest dig. Like the time he asked me to mop up a spill during a barbecue, saying, "You're used to this kind of work, right?" Lisa slammed her mug down. "He's a bully, Adriana, and you're letting him win. You're smarter than he'll ever be. Start acting like it." Her words stuck, but I wasn't ready to push back. I kept visiting, hoping Mom would speak up, but she never did. She'd hug me tightly when I left, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." But in Richard's presence, she shrank. Her voice lost under his control. I hated it, not just for me, but for her. The tension built over months. Each visit a reminder of my place in Richard's hierarchy. He'd send me to fetch his code or pour drinks for guests, tasks he'd never ask of Jennifer, who lounged with her phone untouched by his demands. Once at a cocktail party for his colleagues, he introduced Jennifer as his brilliant daughter headed for Harvard, then gestured vaguely at me. "And Adriana, she's helping out tonight." I was 28, running my own tech gigs worth $15,000 a year, but to him I was the help. His colleagues barely glanced my way, and it swallowed the urge to scream, stacking glasses in the kitchen while Jennifer posed for photos. By late fall, I was done pretending it didn't hurt. I'd built a life from nothing, coded apps for major brands, saved $20,000 for my own place. But Richard's voice still made me feel small. I started dodging their invites, claiming work deadlines. But Mom's calls pulled me back. "Just come for Christmas," she pleaded. "It's important to me." I agreed, promising myself I'd stay calm no matter what Richard threw at me. I spent days preparing, bought a new dress, rehearsed talking points about my latest project, thinking maybe this time he'd see me as more than a servant. I was wrong. The Christmas party was at their condo, decked out with lights and a towering tree, guests in suits and sequins filling the space. I arrived early, helping Mom set up, arranging platters and pouring wine. Richard barely acknowledged me, too busy schmoozing with clients worth millions. Jennifer flitted around charming everyone, her laughter sharp as glass. As the night wore on, I cleared empty plates, keeping the place tidy for Mom's sake. I was stacking dishes by the sink when Richard's voice cut through the chatter. "The maid doesn't need to stand here, Adriana. Get back to the kitchen." He pointed at me, his grin wide like he'd landed a punchline. The room went quiet, guests exchanging glances, some chuckling awkwardly. Jennifer snorted, covering her mouth while Mom froze her hands, clutching a napkin. I stood there, plates in hand, my heart pounding, not with shame, but with rage. I'd spent years swallowing his insults, smiling through his games. But this was different. He'd said it in front of everyone, stripping me bare with one sentence. I set the plates down slowly, meeting his gaze, my voice steady despite the fire inside. "I'm not your maid, Richard." His smirk faltered, but he waved it off, turning back to his guests. "Just a joke, folks. Let's eat." The party resumed, but I was done. I grabbed my coat, ignoring Mom's whispered pleas to stay, and walked out into the cold Chicago night. In my car, I didn't cry. I planned. Richard thought he could break me, but he just lit a fuse. I called Lisa before I even reached my apartment. "I'm starting that platform I told you about," I said, my voice firm. "And I'm going to make Richard regret ever opening his mouth." Lisa didn't hesitate. "I'm in. Let's build it." That night, I pulled out my laptop, sketching the framework for Mitchell Analytics, a tool to revolutionize personalized ads, something I knew could rival Richard's empire. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every moment he'd made me feel like nothing. For every time Mom looked away for the girl who'd scrubbed floors to survive, Richard had no idea what was coming. That Christmas night, when Richard's words branded me a maid in front of everyone, I didn't just walk away. I started running towards something bigger. My laptop glowed in the dark of my Chicago apartment as I poured my anger into Mitchell Analytics, the ad platform I'd been sketching for months. I wasn't just building a company. I was building a weapon, one that would make Richard see me as more than the nobody he mocked. Lisa was on board from day one, brainstorming over late-night calls, her voice crackling with excitement. "This is your shot, Adriana. Make it count." I knew she was right, but I also knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed connections, capital, and a plan sharp enough to cut through Richard's empire. A month later, I registered for a tech conference in Chicago. A gamble that cost me $2,000 I barely had. The place was a maze of suits and buzzword-driven startup founders pitching to investors with million-dollar smiles. I felt out of place in my off-the-rack blazer, my nerves screaming that I didn't belong, but I pushed through, clutching my pitch deck for Mitchell Analytics. It was a tool to personalize ads in real time using data to hit audiences with precision, a game changer for brands. I'd coded the prototype myself, testing it with small clients who paid me $5,000 for early access. The numbers were promising, but I needed more than promise to take on Richard. That's when I met Karen Walsh. She was 50, sharp-eyed, and commanding, leading a panel on venture capital with a voice that silenced the room. Her bio read like a battle map. She had started a tech fund after clawing her way out of a marriage where her in-laws treated her like an outsider. I lingered after her talk, heart pounding, and handed her my business card. "I've got a platform that could disrupt ad tech," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She raised an eyebrow, scanning me like she could see my entire story. "Send me your deck," she said, slipping my card into her pocket. I left the conference buzzing, not daring to hope. 2 days later, Karen emailed. "Let's meet. Your idea has legs." Our first meeting was at a downtown cafe. Karen sipped espresso while I laid out my vision. Mitchell Analytics could scale to handle billion-dollar ad campaigns. I showed her data from my prototype that boosted client conversions by 30%. She leaned forward, asking about my revenue, $15,000 so far, and my bottlenecks, coding capacity, server costs. Her questions were brutal, slicing through my pitch but respectful, like she saw potential I hadn't fully grasped. "You're onto something, Adriana, but you're playing too safe," she said. "With the right backing, this could be huge, bigger than the dinosaurs running this industry." I knew she meant companies like Bennett Media Solutions, and my pulse quickened. "You want huge?" I replied, meeting her gaze. She smiled, a rare approving thing, and promised to connect me with her investor network. Karen was true to her word. Over the next 6 months, she mentored me, introducing me to venture capitalists who could fund my growth. Lisa and I worked around the clock, her marketing skills turning my code into a story investors couldn't ignore. We hired Mark Evans, a 32-year-old data scientist I'd met freelancing, whose knack for algorithms made our platform faster and smarter. Together, we pushed Mitchell Analytics to handle 10 million ad impressions daily, pulling in $50,000 in revenue from mid-sized clients. The late nights blurred together, coding, pitching, debugging, but every milestone felt like a brick in the wall I was building against Richard's world. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from Mom's condo, dodging Richard's invites with excuses about work. Mom called sometimes, her voice soft and worried, asking why I hadn't visited. "I'm swamped, Mom. New project," I'd say, hating the half-truth. I couldn't efface Richard S. smirk or Jennifer S. snide comments, not when he was pouring everything into my company. Lisa noticed my mood darkening after those calls. "You're not just building this for you," she said one night, handing me a beer. "You're doing it for your mom too, to show her you're more than what he says." Her words hit hard, and I nodded, refocusing on the plan. Mitchell Analytics wasn't just a startup. It was my way out of Richard's shadow. Then came the break I hadn't expected. I was at a tech meetup, networking with founders, when Rebecca Hall approached me. She was a 40-year-old tech journalist with a reputation for sniffing out corporate secrets. "I've been digging into Bennett Media Solutions," she said, her voice low. "They're in trouble. Bad investments, losing clients, hiding it from shareholders." My heart skipped. Richard's company, valued at $70 million, was his crown jewel, the thing he lorded over me. Rebecca handed me a USB drive. "Take a look. Might be useful for someone with your ambition." I thanked her, my mind racing, and rushed home to plug it in. The files were a goldmine, financial reports showing losses of $10 million, emails about desperate loans, and a board scrambling to cover it up. I called Karen the next morning, my voice shaking with possibility. "Bennett Media is sinking. We could buy it. She didn't laugh or dismiss me. She asked for the data. We met that afternoon, poring over Rebecca's files, crunching numbers. It's risky, Karen said, but with the right strategy, we could pull it off. Their assets are still worth $40 million. We'd need a holding company to mask your involvement. I nodded, adrenaline surging. This wasn't just about proving Richard wrong. It was about taking his throne. Karen proposed Phoenix Partners, a shell company she'd used for acquisitions, and offered to front $10 million of her own capital if I could raise $5 million through my network. The next 3 months were a blur. I pitched to every investor Karen introduced, showing Mitchell Analytics' growth, now at $100,000 in revenue, and the potential to absorb Bennett Media's clients. Mark optimized our platform to handle their scale, while Lisa crafted a pitch deck that sold the vision, a new era of ad tech led by us. We secured the $5 million, mostly from Karen's contacts, who saw the numbers and trusted her track record. I barely slept, fueled by coffee and the thought of Richard's face when he'd learned the truth. Every contract I signed, every dollar we raised, was a step closer to flipping his world upside down. By summer, Phoenix Partners had a deal in place, a $35 million acquisition of Bennett Media Solutions, structured to keep my name out of the public filings. Karen's lawyers handled the details, ensuring Richard wouldn't suspect me until it was too late. I met with their interim CEO, posing as a tech consultant, asking pointed questions about operations. He admitted their staff turnover was high, talented employees leaving because of management issues. I knew he meant Richard's ego, and I hid my smile, filing it away for later. When I left, I called Karen. It's happening. We're doing this. She laughed, a rare sound. You're not just playing the game, Adriana. You're rewriting it. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the signed acquisition papers, my hands trembling. Mitchell Analytics was now worth $2 million on its own, but this deal would put me in control of Richard's empire. I thought back to that Christmas party. His voice, his smirk, his finger pointing me to the kitchen. He'd thought he'd broken me, but he'd only made me stronger. I wasn't just Adriana from Tennessee anymore. I was the woman who would make him greet me every morning at the office he once ruled. The boardroom of Bennett Media Solutions was all glass and steel, a monument to Richard's ego, and I stood outside it, my heart steady, but my palms damp. Months of planning, late nights coding Mitchell Analytics, raising $5 million and securing the $35 million acquisition through Phoenix Partners had led to this moment. I'd kept my name hidden, posing as a consultant to avoid tipping Richard off. But today, the mask came off. I adjusted my blazer, bought new for this occasion, and pushed open the door, ready to rewrite the rules of his world. Inside, Richard sat at the head of the table, his gray hair slicked back, commanding the room as he droned on about quarterly projections. The board, 10 suits with tired eyes, nodded along, unaware their company had bled $10 million in losses. Jennifer perched to his right, her notepad untouched. Susan wasn't there. Mom rarely attended these meetings, a fact that stung, but didn't surprise me. I slipped into a seat at the far end, my presence barely registering until Richard glanced my way, his brow furrowing. Adriana, this is a closed session. What are you doing here? His voice carried that familiar edge, the one that used to make me shrink. I smiled, calm, deliberate, and opened my laptop. I'm here on behalf of Phoenix Partners, the new majority owner of Bennett Media Solutions. The room went still. Pens paused mid-scribble, eyes darting between me and Richard. His face hardened, a flush creeping up his neck. That's absurd, he snapped. I'd know if my company was sold. Who authorized this? I slid a stack of documents across the table. The acquisition papers Karen's lawyers finalized weeks ago. It's done, Richard. As of yesterday, Phoenix Partners holds 51% of the shares, valued at $35 million. Jennifer snorted, tossing her hair. You running a lemonade stand is more your speed, Adriana? Her giggle broke the tension, but I didn't flinch. I pulled up a slide on my laptop. Mitchell Analytics metrics showing $150,000 in revenue and 10 million daily ad impressions. My company, Mitchell Analytics, designed the tech that will integrate with your assets, I said, my voice steady. We've already signed contracts to replace your failing campaigns, saving this company from the $10 million hole you dug. The board leaned forward, murmuring, as Richard's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the table. He stood, pointing at me, his voice rising. This is a stunt. You don't have the experience or the capital for this. Who's really behind it? I met his glare unflinching, gesturing to the documents. Read them. Phoenix Partners. My partnership with Karen Walsh, a venture capitalist you might have heard of, considering she's funded companies worth $1 billion. Karen's name hit like a shockwave. Even Richard couldn't dismiss her. He sank back into his chair, flipping through the papers, his face paling as the truth sank in. Jennifer's smirk vanished, her eyes wide, darting to her father. The board chair, a gray-haired woman named Ellen, cleared her throat. Ms. Adriana, you're claiming operational control? I nodded, projecting a new slide. My vision for Bennett Media Solutions, streamlined campaigns, better staff retention, and a culture of respect, effective immediately. I'm overseeing strategic decisions. Richard will report to me directly, and yes, that includes greeting me each morning in the office. A gasp rippled through the room, followed by stifled laughter from some. Richard's eyes blazed, but he stayed silent, knuckles white. I'd planned that line for months, not to humiliate him, but to remind him who held the power. Jennifer couldn't resist. You're delusional. Dad built this company from nothing. You're just a glorified coder playing dress-up. I turned to her, voice sharp but calm. Your dad lost $10 million hiding bad deals. My platform's already pulling in clients you couldn't keep. Check the numbers. I clicked to a graph showing our contracts with 3 major brands, worth $2 million each. Jennifer's mouth opened, then closed, her face flushing as the board scribbled notes. Ellen nodded, impressed, and asked about my timeline for restructuring. I laid it out. 6 months to stabilize, a year to dominate, feeling Richard's stare burn into me. When the meeting ended, the board filed out, some shaking my hand, others whispering about the new blood. Richard stayed seated, staring at the table, pride in tatters. Jennifer stormed out, muttering about small-town trash, but I didn't care. I was packing my laptop when Susan appeared at the door, her face pale, eyes wet. Adriana, how did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? Her voice cracked, and for a moment he softened, remembering her hugs in Tennessee. But I straightened, keeping my distance. I tried to tell you, Mom. For years, you never stood up to him. She flinched, reaching for me, but he stepped back. I'm sorry, but I can't keep pretending it's okay. She nodded, tears falling, and left without another word. It hurt more than I expected, but I couldn't carry her silence anymore. Richard finally stood, voice low, almost a growl. You think you've won this company? It's my legacy. You'll crash it in a year. I faced him chin high. Your legacy was failing. I'm saving it, and you'll follow my rules, or find another job. His eyes narrowed, but he walked out, shoulders slumped, a deflated man. I exhaled, the weight of years lifting, replaced by a fire I hadn't felt before. Later, at my apartment, Lisa and Mark cracked open beers, toasting what they called the takedown of the century. I laughed, but my mind was already on the next steps. New hires, client outreach, staff handbook with a respect clause I'd insisted on. Karen called, voice warm. "You didn't just win, Adriana. You changed the game. Ready for phase 2? I grinned, staring out at the Chicago skyline. Born ready. 6 months after turning Richard's world upside down in that boardroom, I packed my Chicago apartment and moved to Seattle. Not running away, but running toward a life I'd built on my own terms. Mitchell Analytics was no longer a late-night dream. It was a global brand pulling in $2 million in revenue and serving 20 million ad impressions daily. I traded Chicago's gray skyline for Seattle's misty mountains, setting up our headquarters in a sleek office overlooking Puget Sound. The move wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a declaration. I was done living in Richard's shadow, done carrying the weight of his insults or Mom's silence. Seattle felt like a fresh start. Lisa moved with me, her marketing genius driving our campaigns to new heights, while Mark Evans stayed in Chicago to manage our Midwest clients, his algorithms keeping our platform razor sharp. Karen Walsh became more than a mentor. She was a partner, splitting her time between Seattle and San Francisco, guiding me through billion-dollar negotiations with brands I'd once only dreamed of pitching. Together, we turned Mitchell Analytics into a powerhouse, valued at $10 million, with a team of 50 and growing. Every milestone, new contract, and new hire reminded me of that Christmas night when Richard called me a maid, thinking he'd broken me. He hadn't. He'd forged me. I didn't cut ties with Chicago completely. Bennett Media Solutions, now under my control through Phoenix Partners, was thriving after the restructuring I'd promised. We'd slashed inefficiencies, signed deals worth $5 million, and boosted staff morale with policies I'd written myself. Respect clauses, fair promotions, no more egos like Richard's. He stayed on as an exec. His role diminished, but his paycheck intact. During my quarterly visits to Chicago, he'd greet me at the office door. "Good morning, Ms. Adriana," clipped, forced, avoiding my eyes. It wasn't petty satisfaction I felt. It was closure. Every forced hello was a reminder of what I'd overcome. Not just for me, but for the girl who'd scrubbed floors in Tennessee, dreaming of more. Jennifer faded from my life. She called once after the boardroom showdown, spitting venom about how I'd stolen her father's company. I didn't argue, I just hung up. Her taunts, once sharp as knives, were now background noise. Mom was harder. She sent letters to Seattle, handwriting shaky, apologizing for not standing up to Richard. I read them late at night, heart aching, but I didn't reply. I loved her, but her silence had hurt too much, and I needed space to heal. Maybe one day we'd talk, but not yet. I'd built a new family, Lisa, Mark, Karen, people who saw my worth without me begging for it. I poured my energy into something bigger than myself. Last spring, I launched the Mitchell Foundation, a nonprofit to fund first-generation entrepreneurs, especially women from small towns like mine. We'd already granted $100,000 to 10 startups, each founder reminding me of my younger self. Hungry, scrappy, underestimated. At our first gala, I stood on stage, spotlight warm against my skin, and shared my story. I was called a maid in my own mother's home. I said, voice steady, but I didn't let that define me. You don't need anyone's permission to shine. Your worth is yours to claim. The crowd roared, and I felt lighter, like I'd finally shed the last of Richard's chains. Richard's world kept shrinking. Rebecca Hall, the journalist who tipped me off, published a piece on Bennett Media's near collapse, hinting at his mismanagement without naming me. He called after it ran, voice tight with rage. "You're destroying my reputation." I laughed, a real free laugh. "You did that yourself. I just saved your company." He hung up, and I didn't hear from him again. except through those morning greetings. Each was a small victory. He'd never admit it, but I'd earned his respect, or at least his fear. Seattle became home in ways Chicago never could. I bought a loft with a view of the water, open space filled with books and art I'd chosen, not hand-me-downs from Richard's world. Lisa and I hiked on weekends, her laughter echoing through the trees while Mark visited monthly, bringing Chicago pizza and bad jokes. Karen invited me to her beach house for strategy sessions, her sharp mind pushing me to dream bigger. "You're not done yet," she'd say, and I'd nod, knowing she was right. Mitchell Analytics was just the start. I wanted to reshape the industry, prove that someone like me could lead without losing her soul. Standing on that gala stage, I thought back to Tennessee. The girl threading needles in Mom's shop, the teenager juggling jobs to survive, the woman Richard tried to break. Every step, every scar, had led me here. I didn't need his approval or Mom's voice to feel whole. I'd built my own table, surrounded by people who valued me, and that was enough. And that was when I realized the truth I'd been chasing all along. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my worth, proving it to myself first. Richard's greetings were just a bonus, a quiet acknowledgement of the power I'd earned. If you've ever been made to feel small, belittled by someone who thought they were untouchable, know this. Your value doesn't come from their words. It's in your fight, your grit, your refusal to dim your light. Build your own path. Surround yourself with those who lift you up. Don't look back. I'm Adriana, and I went from a maid in my mother's home to a leader who made her stepfather greet her every morning. I didn't just reclaim a company. I reclaimed my life, my confidence, and my future. You can rewrite your story too. Start today. The end. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Comment below which story you want to hear next. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.